Right now, we are standing at the center of an old, dormant volcano. A lot of these natural wonders of the world are diminishing. All the trees you see behind me are clones of one another. The rim of the Grand Canyon is 7,000 feet above sea level. So right now we're standing right in the middle of an incredible natural process, ponderosa pine tree. Gin is distilled from this kind of berry. The mountain behind me is 12,633 feet above sea level. My name is Keaton, and I am a tour guide. So I'm standing here at the base of the San Francisco Peaks, and behind me is Humphreys Peak, Arizona's highest mountain. At 12,633 feet above sea level, no trees are going to be growing up there. It's so high up, the ground itself is frozen year-round. And you can see right now, we have a nice snow cap on the top of the mountain. And right here, we're standing just about 8,000 feet above sea level. And at 8,000 feet, we find nice groves of quaking aspen trees. This is one of our only deciduous trees in the area. The name quaking comes from the behavior of the leaves themselves. The leaf has a very long petiole, the piece that connects it to the branch. And as the wind comes through, it creates a nice quaking look to the leaves. They tremble with their nice golden color, and then over time, the leaf falls away, and soon we'll be entering into winter. I can't tell you how many people I take to the Grand Canyon and are surprised that there are trees there. Pinyon and juniper seem to grow together well. The kind of right elevation, right climate for those two trees to grow. We have a massive, magnificent ponderosa pine tree. There's a whole forest of ponderosa pine trees and pinyon pine trees and juniper trees, Douglas fir trees, spruce trees, all kinds of trees that grow on the rim of the Grand Canyon. And everyone just thinks Arizona is a big desert. One of my favorite things about aspen trees is it's not actually trees plural. They are one massive organism. All the trees you see behind me are clones of one another, and they're sharing a common root system underneath the ground. Why the trees are here? Because of the nice high elevation we have, the cooler temperatures, that leads to a ponderosa pine forest. You look down into the canyon and you see cottonwoods growing. That's where the water is. There are springs and creeks and rivers leading down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. So as a naturalist, we could come right here and look at the cut of the tree, count up all these different rings, and get a rough estimate of how old this tree was. But with the ponderosa pine trees, there's a much quicker and easier way to get an estimate of the trees, and that's by looking at their bark. So instead of sitting here and counting ring after ring after ring after ring, we can just kind of look at the trunk of the tree, look at the tree bark, and if it's got this orange color, we know the tree has reached at least 100 years, potentially all the way up to about 500 years is the average lifespan of a ponderosa pine tree. There are a lot of high-end like jackets and backpacks and a bunch of gear that you can buy if you'd like to, but there's also plenty of gear you can find at like the thrift shop or at garage sales or hand-me-downs. And hiking gear is designed to be in the outdoors, in nature, kind of take a beating. So I found that a lot of the hiking gear that I do get often lasts me years and years and years. Once you've got a backpack, some water, some food, good shoes, good socks, and good clothing, that's pretty much it. That's all you need to be a naturalist. I don't think anyone should be scared of getting into the outdoors. It's open. We're out here. These are all public lands. You know, it's not pay a ticket to get into the national forest. It's you get here, you're here, this is yours, this is ours, this belongs to the public. I think if you take the proper steps to kind of make yourself ready, know what you're getting into, you can do it. No matter what your experience is, what your goals are, there is entry. These things are not kept behind closed doors, they're not gated away, they're not only for the select few. You can go out and you can do it. You just gotta know where to start. So when I'm out hiking, I'm not always going to encounter animals to look at, but there's always signs of them around. And one of the most obvious is scat or poop. It looks to me kind of like the poop I would find from my dog in the backyard. So that's gonna lead me to think this is some kind of dog, like a fox or a coyote. Now looking inside of it, I can see a number of seeds, and the seeds here all seem to be from the berries around us. So looking at the trees, this right here has all these tiny little berries growing inside of it. And then if you take one of the berries and open it up, you'll see the same seeds that we found in our scat. Now in North America, there's only one canine species that can easily climb trees. And we have them here. They're called the gray fox. So looking at the scat on the ground, seeing that it's canine and filled with berries from the juniper tree, I'm gonna lead to this being a fox left up behind, but there's always the possibility of a coyote. And the one thing that leads me down the road to think it's a coyote is just the size of the scat. And even though the coyote can't climb the trees like the gray fox, he could forage for the berries on the ground right here. So we know that something's been coming down this trail, and now we're gonna keep our eyes and ears out for any critters or wildlife that might cross our paths. Well, being a naturalist means you're out in nature, often alone. It takes a special kind of person who wants to hike 10 miles to go see a particular mountain ridge that might have some kind of interest to the geologist or to the biologist to see just what kind of trees are on there. And it's not for everybody. So I spend a lot of my time hiking and being on the trail. I don't always know the plants I'm going to encounter. So if you take out your field guide, nice long tube, 4 leaves at the end, kind of spreading out. This one closely matches what they're calling a skyrocket. Ask questions about the place I'm in or the animals that I'm seeing, and then later on try to figure out the answers to those questions. So yeah, looking at everything, it seems like the petal, the stems, and the leaves of this yellow ragweed are what we're looking at here. Let's say, all right, pinyon pine tree. Kind of a short evergreen with a short needle, only has 2 coming off instead of 3 like this tree over here. When you go hiking, it's not just going for a walk. You're going on an adventure. And it might be a small adventure, might just be a couple miles, might be a little hike, might get you to a nice view, but that little tiny bit of adventure is gonna put a smile on your face, and you're gonna come back home asking more questions than you had before you set out. And if you keep following those questions, you'll find the answers. And those answers are very fulfilling knowledge to have that makes you want to go out more, do more hiking, maybe take your adventure to the next step. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you are with it, and the happier you'll be. Wow. So right here we have some pretty big, significantly sized juniper trees. And the juniper is one of the most long-lived trees out here. They actually have really cool adaptations that allow them to survive the periodic droughts that hit the region. So as the tree is growing, it kind of has this nice, soft, shaggy, fibrous bark. But if there was a cycle of drought, well, the tree might not be able to support all of these branches, so it'll stop sending nutrients to specific parts of the tree. That piece of the tree will kind of die and fade away, but the rest of the tree will be preserved and protected. So that leads to trees that sometimes look almost like half dead, half alive. And I can see over here, the tree has started to kind of kill off this particular branch. That might not be because of the drought, but because of all of these little holes in the side of the tree. I would call these wells, and these are the result of birds, particularly sapsuckers. They're a kind of woodpecker that drills all these wells into the side of the tree. And then the sap is going to seep out of the tree into these wells, and the birds can return over and over again and suck the sap. But that sap is important for the tree, so if there get too many wells, too much sap taken away, the tree might end up dying on this particular branch. But like I said earlier, the tree can survive by preserving, protecting the other parts of its body. So juniper here in Arizona can live hundreds, if not thousands of years because of these cool adaptations. There are currently problems in conservation and preservation Here in the Western United States, we are currently in the middle of a water crisis, and all of our reservoirs that have been supplying the water for the cities, for the farms, for the livestock, they're at historic lows. A lot of our reservoirs rely on snow melt, but right now we're not just getting less snow, but it's also getting warmer faster. Probably the first step is just being conscious of using water. When you're brushing your teeth in the morning, do you have to have the water constantly running while you're doing the brushing? Or can you get your toothbrush a little wet, do a little brushing? Same is true for like washing your hands, washing your car, washing your dishes. And even though it's very small scale with the individual, collectively, we could all potentially make a dent in our water usage. And then also in agriculture, there could be better practices. Currently, a lot of farms use flood irrigation. Just flood the entire field and let the plants do with the water they can, and then the rest of the water runs off and evaporates. Whereas if we made like better irrigation, we had better farming techniques where we produced similar amounts of yield but with less water, I think that could go a long way in helping to reduce our need for the reservoirs. But at the same time, you know, we've built cities and civilizations in the desert. Many people have done that before us. Ancestors of the Hopi, the Puebloan people, the indigenous people who have lived here on the Colorado Plateau, and they learned over time how to not overuse the land. And it points to times in the past where civilizations have dealt with water crises and droughts and failing agriculture. And I think we can learn a lot by looking at that history and trying to figure out how our civilization is going to move forward into the 21st century. Right now, we are standing at the center of an old dormant volcano. This is called Red Mountain, and it is one of many cinder cones in the San Francisco volcanic field. But unlike our other cinder cones, this one has an exposed amphitheater that you can hike right into the center of. Now, why is this open is a big mystery in geology. There are many different theories about what formed Red Mountain and how the amphitheater got exposed. But from what I've learned, millions of years ago when the area was erupting, we had a fountain of lava shooting out of a volcanic vent into the air. These lava fountains spew up hot molten rock. As that molten rock rains down to the ground, it cools off and it creates a pile of volcanic cinder. And that's what we call a cinder cone. But usually the cones form right around the vent they're erupting from. But here, our volcanic vent is on the other side of this mountain. So something was occurring that pushed the lava fountain from the vent it erupted at over to the north. Now, the other question about Red Mountain is what exposed the amphitheater here. If you look at it and think about volcanic activity, you might assume a later eruption blew out the side of the mountain and exposed the amphitheater. But if the volcanic vent is on the other side, why would eruption from there create volcanic activity right here? Well, maybe when the volcano was erupting, there were tremendous thunderstorms going on in the area. And all of that wind and rain pushed over the Colorado Plateau, and as the molten rock shot out of the vent, it created an arch, sending the lava to the north. Then all of that volcanic cinder trapped rainwater underneath the hot molten rock. And the rainwater was the source of our steam. And over time, that steam built up, the pressure built below the ground, and eventually the pressure released, blew out the side of the mountain, exposing the amphitheater that we see today. So this is one of the only places in the Coconino National Forest that you can hike to and stand at the center and the heart of an old dormant volcano. People are always surprised that the river carved away the entire Grand Canyon. They think, oh man, that tiny little river, that couldn't be responsible for this huge big canyon. But the Grand Canyon formed over 5.5 million years of erosion. So for some people, they can't wrap their mind around that river carving that huge canyon, and other people can't wrap their mind around 5.5 million years of time. But essentially, if we look at the processes that are occurring today, and we kind of work backwards from there, we can estimate that, yeah, for the past 5.5 million years, the river has been flowing the way it is today. And through all that time, the forces of erosion have carved out this nice, beautiful canyon for us to come and look at. Showed up to our campsite here for the night, and there is already a fire pit dug here, but you can see not all the rocks are still around, and someone was burning some construction wood, and this is filled with rusty nails and broken glass and just a bunch of stuff I don't want to deal with. But this one, I'm digging a little bit deeper because we want to enjoy our campfire without all the smoke. So this is what they call a Dakota smokeless fire pit. This one hole is going to be the site of our fire. We're going to put all of our fuel, all of our wood, all of our combustible material down into this pit. Now on the side here, with my trowel shovel, I've been digging a smaller vent for the fire. So in theory, if we dig this down, and we connect the two, the oxygen is going to flow through this vent into our pit. And then as it burns up our fuel, that oxygen is going to fully combust the fuel, which is going to create a lot less smoke. See, I'm just clearing away the soil from the same level here in the pit as I've dug deep here in the vent. Now, let's add in some kindling. Pine needles burn really, really nicely. Create something for our spark to catch on to. Now our fuel here is some campfire wood we bought from in town, and then some dead and downed sticks from the local pine trees. So ferro rods here are like flint and steel, just a little bit more reliable. You got a nice piece of metal here, nice striking rod there, and as you hit, you get a spark. So let's see if we can get some of our kindling going. All right, we got the pit going. Looks like some of our fuel is igniting. Use the material you used to dig out the pit to bury it later that night. And then even after that, make sure that you can feel the fire with your hands and it's not hot to the touch. Even to this day, 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans, and a lot of that is just improper campfire etiquette and use. So I really like this pit style fire because when we're done, we can just completely smother the whole thing, fill in our holes, fill in our vents, and that should completely drown out the fire, and it will be cold to the touch. I do what I do because I love it. I love being in the outdoors. I love trying to figure out the answers to questions that I find interesting. Why different trees will grow in different places, why there are different temperatures and ecosystems in different regions or different elevations. We as people are part of that natural world, and we should learn how to find that wonder and that mystery about, why things are the way they are, because there are answers to those questions. You start to hear the songs of birds you've never heard before. You can smell the flowers blooming in the spring. You can feel the crunch of snow underneath your feet. It's like getting back to your roots. Being in nature is very fulfilling. You can't get from watching a movie or going to a concert. Like, these things are all fun, but it's almost a sensory overload. And when you're in nature, your senses are heightened, but they're not overloaded. You can notice the subtle differences, the things here and there. That's what I find is fulfilling about doing hiking and exploring. And yep, now we dig.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoy our videos as much as we enjoy making them. Unfortunately, many of our videos don't earn enough YouTube revenue to afford the cost of production. But if you like our content, the best thing you can do is directly support it on Patreon. Plus, you'll get access to behind-the-scenes vlogs and commentary. If you're looking for something more in return, check out paragraphic.io, where you can buy our other products and services. Alternatively, you can shop our Amazon storefront for our favorite equipment recommendations. Also, make sure to check out Boca, where you can find high-quality supplements like lion's mane and reishi mushroom capsules at really great prices. And finally, consider signing up to Multitude, a platform where everyone can upload and monetize their content.